Hello everyone. It has come to that time of the semester where we need to talk about your research paper. So the instructions are posted in Blackboard in the folder that says research paper, and I just wanted to go over it with all of you, so hopefully I can clear up any questions that you might have. If you still have questions after this, that's fine. Just send me an email and I'd be happy to answer them for you. So first we're going to start off with the due date. It's going to be Sunday, April 24th at 11:59 p.m. You're going to submit it on Blackboard through the submission site that's already up, and it's worth a total of 100 points. So what you're actually going to be doing for this paper is you're going to be conducting a literature review. If you've taken research methods, you might have already done this before. If not, maybe you've never done this before, but it's okay because we're going to go over it and how you're exactly supposed to do this. And so you're going to be conducting a literature review on one of the types of victimization that we have discussed over the semester. So let's break it down and go through this in parts. So the first thing you need to do is decide what it is you're going to research. So you have to choose a form of victimization to review. You can pick any one type of victimization that we have gone over this semester, or ones that we have yet to go over, so ones that are coming up. Your book is the best place to look for these. So look in the book to see what we've already talked about, the different forms that we've talked about, or ones that are coming up because maybe something interests you that we haven't talked about yet. And that's totally fine. You can pick one of those as well. So make sure that you're doing this in a broad way. So you're not limiting yourself to a specific area right away. You want to talk about the topic in a more, broad sense. So I've used the example of elder abuse on in this throughout the instructions. So that would be a broad topic to talk about. So make sure that you're not focusing on a specific research question or area, but just on the broader topic. So to make sure that you're on the right track, I am requiring everyone to get their topic approved by me. So all you need to do is send me an email and say, this is what I would like to talk about in my research paper, and I'll say yes or no, and give you suggestions if necessary. This is important because if you don't pick the right topic, if we don't start out on the right foot, then the rest of the paper is not going to go well. So because this is so important, I'm putting this as part of the following instructions part of the grade. So if you don't get it approved, you're going to lose some points. So make sure that you send me an email within the next few weeks to let me know what it is you actually want to look at. All right, so next is another required step where one of the librarians, Emily, has been amazing and has created this library tutorial for you all that goes over step by step how to search for academic articles. So when you're performing a literature review, what you're doing is you're looking for academic peer-reviewed articles that discuss your topic. So in order to do this, you have to go on to the library resources and be able to know what keywords to use, how to type them in, what you're looking for. And so all this is going to be gone over in this tutorial, and it's really helpful. At the end, it gives you the opportunity to perform a literature review, so you can actually type in your keywords, you can actually see what it looks like, and it just helps go over step by step what exactly needs to be done in order to find these articles. It goes over what these peer-reviewed articles look like, how to find them, where they're located, what journals to look at. So it's just super helpful. And because it's super helpful, I'm going to require everyone to do it. So if you have taken a research methods class with me before, then you might have already done something like this. So, you should be a pro by now. But you still have to do it. So the link is provided for you right here. And this has to be completed by the end of the day on Monday, April 18th. The librarian is going to send me a list of all the students who have completed it. So if you haven't completed it, I will know. And again, if you look at the rubric at the very bottom of this document, then you see that this is part of your grade. So make sure to get it done. doing it by April 18th, you have plenty of time to pick a topic, to complete the tutorial, and to write your paper after you do it. So this gives plenty of time, and obviously you can always do it before April 18th. If you do it early and you're still working on your paper later and you have any questions, you can always go back to the tutorial and look at the specific pages. It'll allow you to do that. All right, so now we're going to talk about what actually needs to go in the paper itself. So you're going to start out with an introduction section. This section of the paper is going to basically tell me what topic you've chosen and describe the topic in a little more detail. It's going to be about a page long, and I've included very specific details as to what is to go into this section. So it should consist of 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph is, tell me what you're studying. So what topic did you choose? What type of victimization did you choose to review? So now, you've mentioned it, you're going to go into a little more detail about what this is. So tell me what it is, tell me the definition, tell me anything that you know about it, and you want to be sure to explain why your topic is an important one to research. So, why did you pick this one? And I don't want people to go through, personal experiences or personal statements, because this is a research paper and that's not really appropriate for a research paper. So you want to focus more on what is the criminological importance of this topic. Why should we care about this? Why should we research it? To protect people, to create better policies. Maybe it's something that is typically underreported. So any of those, criminological important qualities about your topic. And you want to make sure that you're being broad here, because you're going to go over specific areas within the topic in the next paragraph. So make sure, like I said, I use elder abuse as my example. So you can say elder abuse, and then, what is it? Why is it important to more learn about it? Same thing if you were going to choose domestic violence, or if you're going to choose rape. Again, what is it? What's the definition? And why is it important to focus on? So in the second paragraph, you're going to explain the specific areas you want to focus on when you're conducting your literature review. So, saying elder abuse is a really broad topic, and there's things about elder abuse that you might specifically want to know, and that's what I want you to say in this paragraph. So you're going to tell me things. Maybe you want to know how often it occurs. Maybe you want to know who's most at risk for elder abuse, because obviously elder abuse occurs after you're a certain age, but people in certain settings might be more at risk than others, people of different races, people of different backgrounds and different locations. And so, tell me about this. Things like reporting practices. How do people discover elder abuse? How does it get reported? How does it get handled by the police? Proposed reasons for why these crimes are typically underreported. Maybe you learn in your research that there's a lot of elder abuse that doesn't get the attention that maybe it necessarily deserves from police officers or family members or whoever. And so why? See what you find out in the research. But in this section, you're not going through and answering these questions. You're just telling me what questions you want to know about. Why do you want to research this topic? What specific areas are you actually going to focus on within this broader topic itself? So then the last part of your introduction section is going to outline your paper. So this next paragraph starts by saying, I reviewed 4 or more research articles, because you're required to include at least 4. So tell me how many you reviewed and tell me the specific topics of each of the articles. So for the elder abuse example that I just gave, some of my research articles that I proposed maybe are going to say multiple of these things. Maybe they're going to say, what the prevalence is and who's most at risk. Maybe they're going to say what the prevalence is and how it's handled by police officers. Whatever the specific topic is of my of these articles that I'm including in my paper is what I want to mention here. So you can keep this short. Just briefly state what it's going to be. You don't have to go into big detail. A lot of this information you're going to get directly from the title of the article. If you need more information, you're not quite sure where the article is going with this, then you can find that information usually in the abstract because it'll tell you what they're actually looking for. And so just very briefly state, I've reviewed 4 articles and the specific topics that we looked at were these. In the last sentence or 2 of this paragraph, you're going to explain why it's important to look at these specific areas. Maybe if we're talking about prevalence, then we're talking about we want to know how often this occurs. If we want to look at reporting practices, we want to, it's important because we want to know who's in charge of reporting, how often things get reported, things like that. So make sure that you use, these specific areas, and you're talking about why it's important and why you wanted to know more about these specific areas. Okay, so after your introduction, you're going to do your actual literature review. So in this section is where you go over each of the articles that you're including in your topic. So the purpose of this section is to answer those questions that you have using some of the research that's already out there. So you're going to use at least 4 peer-reviewed articles that directly relate to these specific areas under your broader topic. So you are required to use peer-reviewed articles only. If at any point you are unsure whether or not the article you found is peer-reviewed, please send it to me and ask, and I'd be happy to tell you yes it is or no it's not. Most of the time you can tell, but sometimes it's actually really tricky. And sometimes journals that look legitimate and seem like academic ones will include a review or kind of a rebuttal from one researcher to another, and those aren't typically peer-reviewed. So you can find these articles when you're doing your literature review, which will be instructed on how to do that when you're looking over the tutorial. But I included just some of the more popular journals in victimology and criminology, just so you have an idea. And so if you see any of these pop up when you're finding articles, you know for sure that those are, legitimate academic journals. So again, this is why it's so important to do that tutorial, because otherwise you might not really have an idea of what I'm talking about when I say peer-reviewed articles. So when you are doing your search, make sure that you're using scholarly journals like the ones I just mentioned, and not things from magazines or newspaper articles or just random things that you found on the internet. They have to come from these peer-reviewed articles. If you have more information from one of these other sources, you can include it, but just make sure that those aren't your main articles. You need to have at least 4 of the peer-reviewed articles. Anything else you include that's not peer-reviewed can just be in addition to those. That's fine. You're not going to lose points as long as your 4 main articles are the ones that are peer-reviewed. Try to select more recent articles. We typically stick to 1990 or later. If you find an article that's absolutely imperative for you to include in your research and it's past 1990, so it's prior to that, just send me an email and let me know, and I will say, oh, okay, yes, I see why you need to use this article, or maybe I'll have a suggestion for a more recent one for you to use. Don't include things like editorials, book reviews. Those tend to not be peer-reviewed, and even sometimes if they are, they're not really discussing the topic in the way that we need to talk about it. So you can focus on theoretical articles, quantitative articles, or qualitative articles. Like I said before, if you're unsure, just let me know, and I would gladly take a look at it for you. If you don't know what theoretical, quantitative, or qualitative means, let's start with the quantitative, with the Q's, the quantitative and qualitative studies. These are studies that actually do ask a research question and try to answer that research question in their paper. So they collect data or they review data of some kind, and then they find specific results with that data. So that's what I mean by those articles. In a theoretical article, You're looking at something that's peer reviewed, that's kind of doing an overall review of the topic. So sometimes they're proposing a new theory, sometimes they're proposing a new way to look at something, sometimes they're suggesting certain policy implications, and so these ones don't actually have a research study within them, but they oftentimes refer to other people's data, other statistics, and at the end of the paper, they usually have a section devoted to future directions within this field or within this topic. So that's the difference between the two. Again, if you're not sure, just ask me, I'll let you know. So what you have to include in this section is laid out for you. In the first paragraph, it's kind of your introduction paragraph. So you're going to restate your research topic in this opening paragraph. So I know it's going to sound a little redundant to what you already did in the introduction section, and it's supposed to. I know nobody likes to just kind of reiterate the same thing over and over again, but that's what we do in research papers. So you're going to provide just a very short couple sentences about what topic you chose and why it's important to study this topic. Then you're going to briefly mention those specific areas again about what you're discussing and why it's important to focus on those specific areas in general, and then that's going to lead you into the rest of the paper. So then you're going to have at a minimum, 4 paragraphs. So these are going to be paragraphs 2 to 5. You can absolutely include more articles if you want to. There's no limit to how many you can include. Just keep in mind that every single article that you review has to be included and cited. So you then will take each article and you're going to summarize the main contributions of those articles on your topic. So each paragraph should be about half a page and review a single article. So paragraph 2 is going to be one article, paragraph 3 is going to be another one, so on and so forth. So when you are writing this paragraph, there's a couple of things that you need to focus on, and it's going to differ depending on whether you chose a quantitative or qualitative study versus a theoretical study. So in articles that you actually see where they conducted an actual research study, so you're going to see in those articles a method section. You're going to see a section that says analyses. You're going to see a section that says results, findings, all those different keywords tell you this is a quantitative or qualitative study. So for these articles, what you're going to do is you're going to state the topic of the research project. So what were these authors looking for? What questions did they seek to answer with their study? What were they actually researching? And then you're going to go through and tell me how they did it. So what is the sample that they use? It's important because a lot of times you're going to find an article that says, a sample that was taken in Africa. I saw a bunch when I was looking just recently that were in place in Ghana. And Ghana is going to have different data and different experiences than people who are in France, or different from people in the United States. So it's important to know where the sample comes from and who's the sample. If we're looking at elder abuse, obviously we want to look at people who are older than the age of 65, but we want to know more about them. What's their racial composition? What's their location? Where are they living? Especially for elder abuse, are they living in an assisted living facility, a nursing home? Are they at home? Do they have home health care? We want to know more about the sample. So tell me a little bit about the sample. You also want to know what methods were used when they studied their research question. And I know that this part can get a little complicated in the articles, but you don't have to get so super specific. Just look for things like, did they give out a survey? Did they do interviews? Did they review data that's already out there, like the NCVS or the UCR? So just mention what the data set was, how they got their data. You don't have to go into a lot of detail there. Where you want to focus most of your detail is on talking about the findings for each study. So we want to know, what did the authors find? So at the very end of the study, they're going to have a results section. Sometimes those get a little complicated with the different analyses and statistics that are involved in the study. Don't weigh yourself down in the details. We just want to know, okay, what did they conclude? Did they conclude that people who live in nursing homes are abused more than people who have at-home health care, vice versa? What were the actual, answers to those questions that they were asking? You don't have to go into the nitty-gritty of how they found it. So most of this information can be found in a couple different areas of the paper. You're going to find some of it just directly from the abstract. The introduction is going to go over the specific questions that they have. The method section is going to discuss the sample and how they collected the data. And then there's going to be a results section, but also a discussion/conclusion section at the end of the study. And that's where you're going to find, what the authors actually found. And typically this can be found in the abstract too. There's just going to be a lot more information on the in the back end of the research where it goes over, this is what we found. So if you choose a theoretical article, these are the things you want to mention in your paragraph for these. So first of all, why are they writing the article? I went over, when I was explaining the differences between a theoretical article or a quantitative or qualitative article, why they do these things. So what is the purpose of writing this theoretical piece? Are you introducing a new theory, a new policy, possibly a new sub-area? Are they proposing a new way to study this problem that hasn't been done before? Typically at the very beginning, they'll tell you, this is why we're writing this. This is what we want to look at. And then you also want to know the conclusions made by the authors. So sometimes depending on how the paper is formatted, they'll, at the very end of each section, they'll have a, kind of so what part. What do we do with this information? Well, we want to do this. At the very end of the paper, typically, they'll summarize everything. And so this typically includes a section that's called Future Directions, where they specifically lay out what they want you to take away from this article and the questions they want people to address or what they feel like they answered. So again, if you have any questions about the article that you're looking at, you're not sure, if something is a specific finding, especially in the theoretical pieces, just ask me and I can help you figure it out. So one of the most important parts for this section is that you need to make sure that you're using in-text citations. I go over how to do that in a couple more paragraphs, but basically keep in mind that anytime you say something that's not considered common knowledge, so if you're saying things like the rate of rape has increased over the past years, has it? How do you know that? You need to use the citation from an article that actually specifically says that. So anything that's not common knowledge needs to be cited. And so in the last paragraph of this section, it's the conclusion paragraph. So you want to be able to kind of wrap it all up for the reader, which is neat. So you want to combine all the information from the articles discussed and say, overall, these articles found this. What were the overall findings? Were the findings similar? Did they all say similar things for this is what needs to happen in the future? Or did they find different things? Maybe one study found that elder abuse was higher in home health care versus in nursing homes. So, we want to talk about the differences in the study, and if there are big differences, take a stab at why you think that's the case. Maybe it's the samples, maybe it's the location, tell me why you think there's major differences. You want to talk about any patterns that you found in the research, and then at the very end you want to discuss, after I performed this literature review and I went over all this information, I realized this. So how do these articles increase your knowledge? Tell me what you learned. Tell me, if you learned that maybe something is not as big of a problem as you thought it was, maybe it's more of a problem, maybe you learned about a new policy, maybe you learned about a new prevention technique. What did you take away from all these articles? So at the very, very end, so that's the end of the paper itself, At the very, very end, you're going to include a separate page that has the references or a bibliography with all the articles that you used. So it's really important to include this to make sure that I can see where your information comes from, so I can make sure that you're using appropriate articles. So feel free to use Google Scholar cite function. So in this, if you just go to Google Scholar, I think if you Google like Google Scholar citations, it will come up with this website where all you have to do is put in the information it asks for, and then it'll generate a citation for you. Be careful though, because you want to make sure that your citations look like these, and sometimes Google doesn't put out all the information that you need. So how a proper citation starts is with the author's last name, comma, first initial, period. And if you have more than one, you have to list them all. And so even if you have like 7, you need to list all of them. And they'll go in order of how they're listed on the article itself. Then the next thing you're going to include in parentheses is the year of publication. Then you're going to include the name of the article. And this is not in italices. It's just in normal writing. You capitalize the first letter, but not any of the after ones unless it comes after punctuation. And then what comes next is the name of the journal that the article was published in. So this is going to be in italics. And then the numbers over here, this first number is the volume number. So, they come out with different volumes every single year. Some do 4, some do 2. So after a while they add up. So you need to know the volume number. In parentheses, you have the issue number, and then you have a comma and the page numbers of the article. And so, like I said, this is a lot of information. Google Scholar, you can just put this right in and it'll just generate the citation for you. Just make sure you're double checking and making sure that everything aligns. When you're writing your reference page, all of the citations should be in alphabetical order. So even if your 4th article that you discussed has a author that's first name starts or last name starts with an A, they're going to go first on your references page, even though you discussed them last in the paper. That's fine. It has to go in alphabetical order. So when you're using internal citations or in-text citations, there's a couple ways that you can do it. The first way is by just including the last names of the authors just right in the middle of a sentence. So saying, in an article by so-and-so, they showed this, or they measured this. So here, when I say so-and-so, you want to include the author's names and the date of publication. So that's always what you want to include for in-text citations. Author's name, last names, and the year of publication. And when it's in a sentence, then you're going to do it like this. If you have more than 3 authors, so if you have 3 authors, you have to write every single name out. If you have more than 3 authors, you can use this format down here, where you only include the first person's last name, and then you write in et al, and then comma, and the year. So for this one, you would say, let's say if there were multiple authors after Balter, you would say Nurko et al, and then in parentheses 1993. So for example 2, this is another way to use it, where you basically say what the authors found in your own words. Try to avoid direct quotes as much as possible. So in your own words, you're saying what they found, and then at the very end of the sentence, you're including their names and the year, and all of this goes in parentheses because it's not necessarily a part of your sentence. You're just giving credit to the authors who came up with this information. So again, this is what you do if there's more than 3 authors. Make sure that you're not plagiarizing. So make sure that anything that is not considered common knowledge is cited. And the proper citation is always going to include the author's last names and the year of publication. Like this says, direct quotes should be avoided, and instead you should paraphrase the information. So put it in your own words. This lets me know that you're actually learning the material. You're actually taking this stuff in, you're understanding what it means. If you're just doing direct quotes, then you're really just kind of regurgitating the information to me, and it doesn't show me that you actually completely understand the topic that you're talking about. So make sure that you paraphrase. If you use a lot of direct quotes, you're going to lose some points. So down here at the bottom is just some additional criteria for the assignment. So just like most assignments, it has to be typed, 12-point font, not anything weird, make sure I can read it, and double-spaced. If you do a larger font, it's not going to fool me with the pages or anything like that, so make sure that you format your paper correctly and use the correct fonts, things like that. The assignment's going to be around 4 to 5 pages, not including the cover page or references. So, the introduction should be about 1 page itself, and then the literature review is going to be about 3 to 4 pages, possibly even longer if you include more articles. Each article review that you put in here should be about half a page, so it's going to be like one giant paragraph, because you have to get in a lot of information, so make sure it has everything in there. So the body of the paper will be around, 4 to 5 pages overall. Okay. So you have to include a cover page that has specific information. You have to have your name on it, and you have to have a title that you come up with for your paper itself. So don't just say research paper, but make sure that it says something about the topic of victimization that you chose. I know that some people aren't necessarily the best writers. Some people have English as a second language, so don't get so crazy with grammatical errors, but if I can tell that you just weren't paying attention, that you were kind of sloppy when you were writing it, that you, say things where I can't understand what you're trying to say and it's a project for me to figure it out, that's where you're going to lose points. If you forget a comma or you don't capitalize something, you're not going to lose a lot of points, so don't stress out too much for that. And then again, don't forget to do the tutorial from the library. There's a link in these instructions, and I also provided a separate link in the folder on Blackboard itself, so you can just click on that and get started on it whenever you're ready. It has to be done by Monday, April 18th. So this just goes over what your paper is going to look like. So the cover page, your introduction page, and then the literature review itself, and then the references and bibliography at the end. And then if you want to know exactly how you're going to be graded, I included a grading rubric at the very end that I'm going to use when I grade everyone's paper. So once you receive your grade, you can go on Blackboard, you'll be able to see comments, and you'll be able to see exactly where you lost points if you did. So that should help you, figure out exactly where you stand. So that's it. If you have any questions when you're starting to work on this, if you're going over the library tutorial and you have questions, please let me know sooner than later. Don't wait till the last minute, and I'll be able to help you out. So take care. Have a good day.